Welcome to this introductory video on tables in Occamise. Tables are a way for you to store structured data and make that available to agents during conversations. Agents can also interact with tables themselves, performing CRUD operations, so create, read, update, and delete. And we can do that through giving the agent appropriate abilities. So we'll cover that in more detailed tutorials, but in this video, we just want to cover the very basics of tables. So let's create a table. Come over here and create a table and give it a name. So for example, we might want to create a task list. So to add a field, just come down here and click plus. Let's have a look at what a field sort of needs in terms of its settings. Obviously we need a name. So we would like have a task name field, for example. This one would be required. And the type would be text. Let's have a look at the different types that are available though. We have text, we have vector distance, we have number, float or decimal, date, and boolean. Now the only one that's probably not familiar to you from here is this vector distance. So when you select vector distance, there is an additional setting that you need to choose, which is either very similar, fairly similar, or somewhat similar. So if you're familiar with how semantic search works, you could search for something like dog in a list of entries, and anything that's sort of similar semantically to dog, which might be say pet or animal or so on, then it will have a certain distance in terms of its semantic relevance to the search phrase. Okay, so if we were to query on a vector distance field, what we're effectively saying is perform a semantic search on the field, and if you find a record that is very similar, fairly similar, or somewhat similar, then return the result. So if you want it to always be very similar, so it's a lot closer in distance, then you would set that for that column. So anytime we do a semantic search on this column, it's going to do a semantic search and only return rows that are very similar semantically. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a little bit complicated, but play around with it and you'll find that it's quite a useful tool in the context of AI-powered solutions. All right, so and I think all the rest of the fields are fairly self-explanatory. I don't need to go into each of these. So just to round this out, I might have task details. You can't have spaces in your name, by the way. So that'd be text, that'd be text. We might have a due date. We'd set that to Boolean. And then we might have a completed status. And you might want to obviously add other date columns like when was this record added. Sorry, due date is not Boolean. Due date is obviously a date. Okay, so this might be how you would set it up. And perhaps not everything needs a due date, so you could set that as not required. And that's your table. So if I hit Save Changes now, and I come over to the Table Content tab, you can see I can actually interact with this table now by adding records manually. And I can obviously read from and sort the table using this view here. So that's really the sort of high level on tables. And in other videos, we'll go into a little bit deeper on each of these different field types and maybe experiment with vector distance type queries and show you how we can create abilities and give them to agents so they can perform those CRUD operations.